Hey everybody, it's Mark Pattison. I'm back again with another great episode of Finding Your Summit, all about people overcoming adversity and finding their way. Although this guy I have on today, a rock star, may not fall exactly into that category, but we'll get to that in a minute. Before we get there, I've got my new website, www.markpattisonnfl.com. I've got a number of things going on right there. I've got my new book out called Finding Your Summit: How to Build Resilience and Faith to Rise Above Life's Challenges. Everybody, doesn't matter how great they are and what amazing life they've led, they all will go through some kind of challenge out in the future. Obviously, it has the same names as this podcast. I'm on almost episode 300. I've also got a Seven Summits Summit coming up this fall. I've got a number of different superstar speakers that will come. We're also going to climb here in Sun Valley, Idaho. It's going to be amazing. We're going to push people. We're going to raise money. We're going to forward that to a organization called Higher Ground. So it's going to be really cool. It's limited to 150 people, superstars who want to learn more about leadership. And then finally, I've been on the speaking circuit. I just got back from Austin, Texas. It was amazing. Love talking about Mount Everest, football, how those things all tie into my pillar keys for success, my pyramid of success on how to get to the top of whatever you're trying to do that is out there. Okay, on that note, let's jump into my really superstar guest. I'm really excited to talk to him. His name is Jay Samit. Jay, how are you doing?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Yeah, wow. I mean, you have got I'm just going to read something right off the top. Jay Samit is a serial entrepreneur, global business strategist, and international best-selling author. We're going to talk about your book here in a minute, who has spent more than 3 decades at the forefront of digital disruption and innovation. You and I have something in common there. A former NASDAQ company CEO and independent vice chairman of Deloitte, Samit has helped launch and scale transformative companies, raise hundreds of millions of dollars in startup capital, and pioneer technologies that now reach billions of people worldwide. We could end the podcast right here, Jay. I mean, seriously, like what more is there to say other than how did you start this entrepreneurial life?
Well, the more to say is I'm no different than anybody listening to
Love
this.
it. Love it.
And I bought into the go to school, get good grades, and live happily ever after. And got out of school, and there's no jobs. And no one's hiring. And I have gray hair for those that don't know it. So when I got out of school, I love this idea of this movie called Star Wars. It just changed my mind. I go, wow, making Hollywood special effects would be the greatest thing to do for a living. But I knew no one in Hollywood and I knew nothing about computers. Other than that, great plan. So what I teach in my books is how do you deconstruct a problem and turn it into a solution. So I put an ad in the trades, right, that described the job that I wanted as if I was hiring. And that got me a bunch of resumes coming in. That told me what my resume would need to look like. And it also told me what companies would have openings real soon because their employees had one foot out the door.
Yeah.
So that was one piece of research. The second one is I went out there and hustled for post-production work on movies. But I knew no one's going to hire a 21-year-old to be in charge of their movie. So I made myself vice president of my new make-believe company. I spent $1 to launch my business. I got business cards. And I went out and I got work. And then I hired the people that knew how to do it. And so if you can identify a problem, if you can identify a hole in a market, if you can identify an obstacle, that's an opportunity in disguise.
Yep.
And so I've spent my whole career making the first video games and the first social network and ran an AI company for 6 years before anybody heard of that. And I realized anytime you go after something that somebody else has ever done, right? That means by definition, somebody else is more experienced, somebody's better funded, somebody's better looking. I hate that guy.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do something no one else has ever done before, by definition, I'm the best in the world at what I do. And so that's led me to create amazing things that people use. It also means you fail more times than you succeed. But to work with presidents and the Pope and Spielberg and all these kind of people, it was a fun adventure. And then 10 years ago, I said, I don't need to climb any more mountains, to use your metaphor.
Mhm.
I've watched dozens of friends become billionaires and not be happy. So how can I pay what I've learned forward? And so I started teaching how to build successful startups. I first did it at college. I had a class of students that made 100 million in a semester, not mythical money, 100 million in actual cash.
Wow.
Then I did a book that was called Disrupt You. And then I did a book called Future Proofing You, where I took a homeless immigrant in the US, mentored him 1 day a week for a year, gave him no cash, no introductions in business, and didn't tell him what to start. Had to start a business that took no capital. And spoiler alert, if you're in the middle of the book, he went from homeless to self-made millionaire in under a year. And now, most recently, while we're talking today, second act advantage, AI is going to wipe out 30% of all the jobs.
Yep.
I said this 10 years ago, I'm a lunatic. When I spoke at Davos, the head of the International Monetary Fund said the same thing, except 2 years. Okay. And they have the data. So that means tons of people that thought that they had a secure job or secure company, their second act is going to start before they might be ready. And whether by choice or circumstance, I think we can agree every career gets disrupted.
Yep.
So if we're pushing millions of people out of the workforce and there's no safety net, universal basic income is a fairy tale that will never exist. I'd like to help people help themselves. I'd like to show them how to do it. And so this book is for the AI era. What are the tools that you can use so you can launch a business with no capital, a side hustle, make extra income? And I also want to explain to people, retirement kills you. You don't want to sit there and do nothing and atrophy. Retirement was designed for when you die at 60 or 65. If you make it to 60 in the US, you most likely will make it to 90. That's 30 years. That means your second act will be longer than your first act.
Mm-hmm.
Think how hard you worked to get in that NFL act, okay?
Yeah.
How many years was that?
Well, I played in the NFL for 5 years, but before that, it was major college football was basically the NFL.
Oh yeah, and your
right?
childhood and everything.
Your childhood,
But
right?
what I'm saying
It was a long time. So I mean, bottom line is that I had to make a gigantic pivot when I was 30 years old, and most of the people that I knew, all my buddies, had gone through their zigzag from post college to figure out what they were going to do, and I had to go back to the bottom, which was really humbling to figure out how I was going to go from the path forward.
And it may have been humbling, but it was probably the most satisfying thing you've done in your life, because overcoming obstacles and growing, you're going to fail, you're going to make mistakes, but the difference between failing and failing is realizing what doesn't work. And you either earn or learn every time you try to do something. Failure is throwing in the towel when you don't realize how close to success you might be.
Yeah.
And so I noticed a pattern. I mean, yes, I've worked with the Steve Jobs and all the big people. Some are brilliant, very few. Most are just average people that don't quit. And so if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So these tools can be taught. And what I like in Second Act Advantage is every time I write a book, the people that I write about make you feel like you wasted your whole life, because with nothing, they achieve so much.
Mm-hmm.
And you then see a pattern of how easy it is to do. And so it doesn't matter the age. I tell one story of a woman who was busy in life, raising kids and everything, never got to go to college, but she always wanted to. So she packed up her car, drove across Kansas, moved into her dorm room at 94, graduated.
Love it.
Then she went on to get her master's, right? The stories of what people do, climbing Everest for the first time in their 80s. I mean, it's amazing what we can do. The other part, which would be a fascinating conversation, is you and I have one difference. You exercised your whole life. You were in good shape. You knew what to do, okay? Mm-hmm. Pizza and pastrami and pasta were my favorite foods, okay? I was not the gym guy. So when somebody tells me you got to, go to the gym every day and all those things, I'm not saying it's not true. Yeah. I'm just saying for most people, it's too high of a wall to climb. They don't do it. Yeah. So in this book, I did a chapter, The Lazy Nerd's Guide to Longevity. Mm-hmm. What are the bare minimum 9 things that you can do to add 28 years to your life? And not just your lifespan, but your health span,
Yeah.
28 years of healthy living. And 5 of them you do while you're asleep. So everybody can do this list.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to take what we learned back in school, anybody listening that went to school in the 20th century, what they taught you about health and diet was wrong. It was lobbyists making a food pyramid. It wasn't scientists. So let's look at autophagy. Let's look at intermittent fasting. Let's look at the things that Nobel Prizes have gone for in the past 10 years and simplify it so people can do it.
Let me ask you this. Have you seen on Netflix a show called The Blue Zones?
Yes, I know, very familiar.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because a lot of the core things. So for people who have not seen that, it's on Netflix. It's a guy that's gone out, and there are like six of these blue zones, according to him, in on the planet, and this is where it's got the highest concentration of centurions. So that means people who are not alive but are like thriving to what you were just talking about
Yeah,
as
that
your
there are 100
example,
living independently. So
independent.
originally, when he wrote that book, he focused on diet. That's where we got the Mediterranean diet and all these
Yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah.
True, they eat much healthier than Americans. But in other people criticizing the research and looking into it, the one single factor that is most important is not what you eat or how you move. It's feeling what the Japanese called Ikigai, a purpose to get out of bed, having a social interaction
Yeah.
and a community and a purpose. You're trying to achieve something. And here's what happens when people retire. And this is what I warn people about in the second act advantage. The second you give up your job or your career, you're giving up your social network, you're giving up your identity, you're giving up what drives you and your purpose to continue to move forward. If you don't replace that with something that's as stimulating, you will atrophy. In your first year, you'll lose 30% of your short-term memory. So you're not facing the existential question of, why am I here? You're walking into the bedroom and going, why am I here? Why did I walk into this room?
Yeah.
So our brains don't naturally decay like that. Our bodies don't decay the way that we thought that they do. And so most of what kills us today is avoidable, and AI will cancel most forms of cancer within the decade. So you can have this great life. And what I realized is we all start off wanting to make the world a better place. We see injustice, we see something that moves us. It could be pet adoption, it could be community gardens, it could be whatever it is. But then we get sidetracked with life and family and everything. But now, when you're older, you have the wisdom of things that you've learned. That's one advantage. You have a social network of people that you've known and done stuff with. And now you have the time to solve these things. And so entrepreneurs don't sell things, they solve things. Solve for 5 people, you have friends. Solve for 1 million, you're wealthy. Solve for 1 billion, and you change the arc of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can do that. You're one click away from 6 billion people. Now, I wouldn't have believed this when I started out, to get back to the beginning of your question. I was an idiot trying to figure out my way in the world. My motivation was real simple. I had 2 kids really, really young, and I looked at them and I wanted them to have a better world. So anytime, the wave went over you and it didn't go the way it was supposed to, that stopped me from quitting. But when they grew up and went to college and were successful and doing great, I'm like, what is my purpose? Why am I here? And I'm not going to invent some, medical cure. But I realized that I had learned how to teach people to be successful. And I'm not a guy trying to sell you a course or anything. I don't monetize this at all. The only reason books cost money is because the publishers need to get them into stores and airports and all that, let them keep their money.
Yeah.
But if we don't get people engaged, the pessimism that is dividing our society will only increase with massive job loss.
Yeah. Yeah. What I hear you saying, and I think this is one of the things that I've been able to and now I've never put myself in the same categories of Steve Jobs or anything like that. But one of the things I've been able to time and time and time be successful about things is just the power of curiosity. And I sense that you have a deep sense of that. And so you're not trying to come up with the idea of, how we beam Scotty from a starship to
Exactly.
Plato. You're just trying to find gaps. And I spoke at this conference, as I mentioned at the outset of this thing, and there's this very large billion-dollar company that is going through this transformation right now about going, kind of like the path going forward. And so I was saying, look, you've got a great baseline. And so, through the power of curiosity, I would start thinking about things in terms of how do you adopt to what's going on? Obviously, AI has a big difference in this thing, but what are the gaps? And I said, there's lots of companies from the past who didn't innovate as they went forward. You have Circuit City, you have Blockbuster, you have BlackBerry phones. I mean, the list goes on and on. The graveyard is deep. And then you have other people that they said, like, success leaves clues. So let's take a look at some of these other people who have a baseline, a taxi cab service. Gee, why don't we have put people in their private cars and let them drive around with their own air conditioning on, and we'll call it Uber? Or how about I could rent out my house and then let's call this thing Airbnb. There's these lists. So it's just like you said this at the very beginning, is thinking a little bit differently in order to find out what that gap is to then fill it, where then you can monetize on that and have a more fulfilling life.
And I actually teach what I taught my students and what I taught in my first book, Disrupt You. I can show you and guarantee you that how you can in 30 days have $1 billion idea.
Hmm.
And it's real simple. Today, not tomorrow, write down 3 problems in your life. Pretty easy. If you don't have any problems, I can't help you, okay?
Yeah.
But do that every day for a month. And here's what's going to happen. Your first couple of days, oh, I'm stuck in traffic, this, whatever. After a couple of days, you don't see any problems because we run our lives on autopilot. We don't think of things as being a problem. And so a buddy of mine, one morning he got up, he's taking his medicine, the phone rings, gets off the phone. Did I take the pills? If I took the pills and I take more, that's not good for me.
Yeah.
But if I didn't take my medicine,
That's not
that's
good.
not good for me.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Long story short, take a 25-cent little Happy Meal watch type thing, attach it to the lid, okay, called a timer cap. Oh, this pill bottle hasn't been open for 6 hours. I didn't take it. Oh, this was open 2 minutes ago. I did. Then you can add that to Bluetooth and make it that only the doctor can unlock your opioids, or a parent can let a kid, and you suddenly have a whole new category solving a major problem, right? It's that easy. Most successful entrepreneurs didn't invent something. The inventions are already out there. Scientists invent not to make money. It's the scientific it's just a process they do. And so there's tons of great inventions that are pivoted, okay? And give you a great example, because the second part, or the part that you left out of your description, and I agree with, is look at the data. Data doesn't lie. It's your best friend. It has no ego. Invite it to every decision. So there was a few friends of mine, guys, we're going back a couple of years, that when computer dating was just online, seeing a still picture and reading about the person, they said, wow, now everybody's broadband. We can do video. It'll be called tune in hookup. Okay. You can hear the person's personality, da, da, da. The first dating video was a guy, I can't make this up, standing in front of the elephant cage at the zoo saying why you should go out with them.
Okay.
Guys built a brilliant website. Everything worked great. Brilliant engineers. Problem. Nobody wanted to date these losers. They failed. But they looked at the data. And if you think of how we use social media today, you may not want to date that guy in front of the elephant, but if you're a woman, you want to send that video to every one of your friends to say, this is the dating pool. So after 1 year, they changed the name of Tune and Hookup to YouTube and sold the company for $2 billion with 0 revenue.
Great story. Great story. Let me talk to you about, so a lot of it you've been equating to second act in terms of you have a job for a long time. And like my dad, this is a great example. So my dad, who passed away 12 years ago, and He was a school teacher, a counselor, and he just got to the point where he was grinding. I always looked out the window every day why he was there going, I wish I was fishing or hunting or doing something outdoors. And then he had that freedom. He got an early retirement at 63 or something. He takes his Social Security and whatever else, and now he has the time all day long to go do that. But now, since he had all the time all day long to go do that, he didn't do it. He never went one time, right? And as a result, he just went in a downward spiral and had a major stroke, and that was it. But you could just see and he was a super social guy,
I'm
right? So,
sorry to hear that, but I will tell you the data that I share in Second Active Advantage,
yeah,
that is what most people have. Most people have a 1 week retirement plan. I've always wanted to see Paris,
yeah,
or I'm going to sort my stamp collection or something. And then that's it. They're not challenging their mind. They're not growing. They're not lighting up their synaptic nerves. Here's the other way to do it. And this was one of my favorite stories in the Second Active Advantage. A guy was a civil engineer, retired. He's at Jiffy Lube getting his oil changed. We've all been there, okay? They've got some old National Geographic magazine. He's flipping through and he sees people hanging on a rope to get across this flooded river because in the rainy season in Africa, you can't get to town, kids can't get to school, you can't get to the hospital. And he goes, I could make like one of those Indiana Jones rope bridges
yeah,
real easy. And for whatever reason, not knowing anybody, not anything, he got on a plane and he went over there and he built them this bridge and he saw it transform the community. So then he set up a 501c3, a charity called Bridges to Prosperity. He's now built hundreds of these, connecting millions of people and changing the trajectory of their lives. Or he could have sat there and watched TV until he just keeled over.
yeah.
And so it is so easy to achieve these things. We're so interconnected that I just think no one's teaching. And here's the last piece that's unique about this book. I don't know why you bought the book and what your journey is or where you are. So this book is the first one that comes with companion AI that's free. It took everything that I've ever written, all my hundreds of speeches, my columns for the Wall Street Journal, all those things. And that's what it was trained on, not on Twitter conversations. And it's your mentor, it's your personal friend to answer your questions and guide you as you make your plan for your second act. And it's not judging you. You don't have to be embarrassed what you don't know. And for the first non-digital generation, that weren't natively born using the computer,
Yeah.
you just basically are talking to it. And it can teach you how to use various AI tools. And most importantly, when you write a book, it's out of date the second it's printed on paper. But now we nicknamed it Digital J. With Digital J, you can say, Canva's a cool tool. Is there a newer one? What is it cheaper to move out of the country to live in Costa Rica or to live in Italy?
Yeah.
Tell me the latest. And it'll have all the current data. So this is the best way I could to kind of personally mentor each reader. I can scale myself. And the funny truth is, I tested it endlessly. My team did a great job. When I ask it questions, it gives back an answer. I go, oh my God, that's a good answer. I wish I would have answered that way because you don't remember everything you've ever said and every piece of knowledge you've ever had, but the digital version of me does.
So let me tell you, I have to say this because I think there's probably a lot of people, a lot of listeners that won't or haven't done this yet because a lot of people just don't. And I spend a lot of time on Chat GPT, and so what's happened is that it has formulated essentially a profile, former NFL, Everest mountain climber, keynote, Sports Illustrated, Emmy Award winner, all this stuff, right? And so it's got this massive profile on me. So now when I'm asking, like, what's the best way I can go about, and I'm making this up, posting a video on YouTube, it'll go to get the stickiest audience and will tell me kind of how to do it and what to do. And it's an ongoing profile of all these questions I constantly am asking. And so kind of to your point, and I love this. I've never heard of this before, and it's brilliant about
Yeah,
it's a real live, it's a real time, active, ongoing, updated version of asking questions about your second act and where you should go based
it's
on
a
the data.
personal coach. And the difference between ChatGPT, and I was chairman of one of the AI companies,
Yeah.
and they're all great on different things, is this was trained on a very specific knowledge set. So it's not all over the place. If, yeah, you ask it, something that isn't about this area of your life, it's not meant for that. So it's really well trained and an expert on one specific area. And I can't imagine in the future, once people see books done this way, why everybody wouldn't want to do something along this manner.
Before I forget, and I want to make sure that we nail it, is the second act advantage. Okay.
Correct.
Where can people find this book?
Amazon, wherever books are sold. Um, you can go to jaysamit.com,
Yeah.
jaysamit.com.
Yeah.
You can reach out to me anywhere. But I will tell you, and you've done a book, so I'm sure you have the same experience. I wrote my first book just thinking about the US. I'd run global companies, but having taught at a US university, the largest engineering school in the country, and having bright students that didn't get how to do something in the practical world, I pictured them and I wrote for that. But people were thirsty for knowledge everywhere. We're all connected. It ended up going to the four corners of the earth. My book's in 12 languages. And I've heard from readers that email me, I call them love letters, from 140 countries, that it's changed their life. And how? I didn't change their life. They did the work. I helped take the blinders off to see a different way of looking at the world. And that's what motivates me. And that's how I found my purpose. And so really enjoying it. And funny story about how well AI will get to personally know you. Okay. I'm a public figure in the sense that there's tons of articles and whatever. And, so one day when I was comparing different AIs and just goofing, I always try to ask it something it can't have the answer for. I just, as a goof, said, what book should Jay Samit write next? I was never planning to write another book. And it said, Disrupting Retirement. And it gave an outline that this is a global problem. We have more baby boomers retiring this year and next year than the history of the world. Our entire society's aging. We're no longer reproducing ourselves in any country other than sub-Saharan Africa. So we're going to be a society with mostly old people. And if we don't get everybody engaged, participating, society is going to fall apart. So I felt a moral obligation to take the advice of AI. And I called up my last editor. I said, is this a good idea? I said, there's nothing like it. And so now I'm out there again.
I love it. I love it. I'm in the same mindset, which is I cannot envision myself ever retiring. Like I don't know that like that's just a word that I'm literally allergic to. And so and a lot of times people go, why don't you just settle down? You've done enough. And I look at them and go, I actually I look at it the opposite way, which I haven't done enough. I've done a couple things that are cool and shiny, but just kind of like you, think of all the things that you and I have not done. I've never like ridden an elephant. I mean, I'm just taking your own, goofy little parable that you told a little while ago about
Yeah.
YouTube and how that became this thing. But just like there's so many things and I think people get so caught up with, I'd rather just play golf every day and do that and drink cocktail and that's great and that's fine. I've got a lot of pals who do that, but it's just not what drives me to get up every day and ask that question that you started off with, which was about what's my purpose to get out of bed?
And you nailed it. I'm curious. And two things happen when you travel. Travel's the only thing where you spend your money and you end up richer. One, you see things that you haven't seen before in the sense of how things are done, and you can bring that back and change things. And two, you can see things that you know about that haven't made it there that you can help these societies. So I mean, I've consulted with foreign governments on their 5-year plans and I mean, been brought into amazing things. I mean, probably the funniest call of the past few years was I got a call from number 3 person at Google. They wanted to hire me. And I go, no false modesty here. You got 16,000 of the world's top PhDs. What could I possibly know when I need to know something I Googled? Why? Like, I'm not looking to work for another corporation. And the short answer was, we can't figure out how to bring things to market. And I'm like, okay. And it's true because you have a company that makes so much money that somebody invents something that only make $100 million a year. It doesn't move the needle. It doesn't get them promoted.
Yeah.
So these amazing products sit there and never ship.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
Well, they're experts in one particular field, which is creating things and being brilliant in classrooms and getting straight A's, and they're all those things. But in terms of maybe it's a sales,
No, it's the culture.
well, it's probably that too.
You're not going to get a promotion for making it, shipping it. You're going to get a promotion for inventing it.
Yeah.
Um, and I wish I wasn't under NDAs because some of the toys that I got to play with, I'm like, I want these toys.
Yeah.
These are, you know, there's a level at which engineering and science has far beyond my comprehension, right? I work with the guys. The way I always predict the future is I work with people that are coding it. But now we're at a level where I just basically call it witchcraft. It is amazing, some of the stuff you're going to see over the next 3 years.
I can't wait.
T-Mobile just said this publicly, so I'm not disclosing anything. You can now call anybody in the world and speak your language, and they can speak any of 50 languages, and you're hearing English, and they're hearing you speaking Swahili or Thai or Chinese in your voice in real time. No app to download.
Love it. Because when I'm in Italy trying to order a pizza and I'm not speaking Italian, I can just say, "Give me my pepperoni pizza," and that's going to like spit out of my mouth in Italian, and they're going to know exactly and deliver exactly what I just ordered.
Yeah. So for years, I've got to play with these glasses that give you subtitles.
Yeah.
So it just gives you subtitles. So
Yeah.
travel the world with 2 pairs. Just tell the waiter to put these on and
Yeah.
just start talking, and they'll be getting in Italian.
Yeah.
But now to be able to just talk in real time.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you want to solve some problem, make something better, or supplement your income? You know, and most Americans hit retirement with zero savings. Social Security is not security.
Yeah.
It's the biggest misnomer ever.
Yeah.
Pensions don't exist for most industries, NFL being an exception. But 50% of NFL players file bankruptcy within 5 years, right? NBA is the same. So no one's preparing people for the world, right? They made us all learn trigonometry or calculus or, they didn't tell us about how to do taxes, right? It's just amazing to me. So if I can take the complexity out of it and the fear is a big motivator, okay? So people are afraid of being embarrassed, afraid to ask questions. Why don't you focus on the bigger fear? You want to be broke? You want to die younger? You don't want to get to see your grandkids? If you focus on that fear, the other stuff just disappears.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Look I would love to go and I could go like 2 hours with you. Easy, easy. I would love to dissect, and we're going to do a follow-up because this is super cool. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to buy this book, The Second Act Advantage. It just, I know it's got so many great tidbits in there. I love your forward thinking about AI and being your personal coach and things around that. So people, if you're listening to this, again, second act, keep going, don't retire, find your passion, get after it. It's going to add longevity to your life, and that in itself is the blue zone. So that's highly valuable. And again, you can buy this book, The Second Act Advantage, on Amazon, or you can go to jsamit.com and you can also buy it and purchase through there, correct?
Awesome. Or wherever books are sold.
Or wherever books are sold. Mine too.
The other tidbit I would say, for a lot of people, figuring out a Father's Day or Mother's Day gift that is meaningful is very elusive. This shows that person that you care, if you're young enough and still have your parents, to get them engaged. So it's a perfect gift to give to a parent that's almost retiring or is retired.
You know what? I'm going to give my mother, who's 91 years old, we just moved her to an ages living facility, this book for her second act. And I think she's got it in her.
There are some stories in there about grannies that decide to become TikTok stars.
Yeah.
Okay, either cooking. There's one granny that plays one video game and she has over 1 million followers. So she's making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year playing video games. Like, think how that changes her. Another one talked about, she was just a regular person. She teaches Japanese cooking online, but she goes to Starbucks and she feels like a celebrity. People go, I know who you are.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's never too late to start.
Love that.
And I thank you for the time and sharing your audience with me.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, everybody. He is the one, the only Jay Samit. Thank you so much.
Thank you.